What happens when a true Hollywood icon walks into a studio expecting respect, but instead finds herself sitting across from someone more interested in provocation than conversation? This is one of those moments that no one watching was prepared for, and once it started, there was no turning back. Before we dive into the video, please like and subscribe and comment. Now let's get back to the video. The morning at the View studio began like any other. Calm on the surface, polished, professional, and carefully staged, but underneath it all, something was already off. Cher arrived early, poised and confident, the kind of presence that fills a room without effort. She was there to promote her latest project, expecting the familiar rhythm of friendly questions and mutual respect that usually comes with decades of industry goodwill. Nothing about the schedule suggested trouble, and nothing in the green room hinted at what was coming next. She sat comfortably sipping her drink, greeting staff with easy warmth, fully prepared for a smooth segment. After all, this was daytime television, not a battlefield. What Cher didn't know was that Joy Behar had already decided this wouldn't be a standard interview. Instead of celebration, Joy seemed ready to turn the spotlight into a pressure lamp. As the cameras rolled and the familiar theme music faded out, Whoopi Goldberg opened the segment with her usual welcoming tone. She praised Cher's unmatched legacy, listing her decades of success, her countless awards, and her cultural impact. The audience erupted in applause as Cher stepped onto the set, smiling confidently, dressed in a sleek black outfit that radiated elegance and authority. Her silver hair was flawless, her posture relaxed, her expression warm, every inch the legend people expected to see. "Thank you so much for having me," Cher said kindly, her voice calm and steady, clearly comfortable in the space. She even added that she was always happy to be there with the panel, setting a tone of goodwill and openness. Whoopi responded enthusiastically, saying they were thrilled to have her, and quickly transitioned to the topic of Cher's upcoming farewell tour. Cher laughed, that familiar laugh that made her feel both iconic and approachable at the same time, joking that she had been saying farewell for years and that people probably didn't believe her anymore. The conversation flowed easily at first. They talked about her career, her endurance in the industry, and how she managed to stay relevant decade after decade. Sarah asked about her fitness routine. Sunny touched on her advocacy work. And everything felt exactly like the kind of interview fans tune in for. Comfortable, respectful, predictable. Then Joy shifted in her seat. "You know, Cher," Joy said, her voice suddenly sharper, carrying that edge long-time viewers recognize immediately. The kind of tone that signals something uncomfortable is coming. "There's something I've wanted to ask you for years." Cher's eyebrows lifted slightly, but her smile stayed in place. "Oh? Okay, what's that?" she replied, still calm, still open. Joy leaned forward, her expression tightening. "Don't you think it's a little hypocritical for someone who's had so much plastic surgery to talk about authenticity and being true to yourself?" The studio froze. The air felt heavier instantly. The other hosts shifted in their chairs, clearly caught off guard. The audience went silent, and you could almost hear the moment land as the temperature in the room dropped. This wasn't curiosity. This wasn't playful. This was a direct hit. Cher's smile flickered for just a split second before she straightened herself. "I'm sorry," she said slowly. "What did you just say to me?" Instead of backing off, Joy doubled down. "I mean, everyone knows you've had a lot of work done. Yet you're always talking about self-acceptance and loving yourself. Doesn't that send mixed messages?" Whoopi immediately tried to step in, saying they didn't need to go there, but Joy waved her off, committed now to the confrontation she'd started. Cher sat taller in her chair, her voice cooling noticeably. She explained clearly that what she chooses to do with her body is her business, and that she's never hidden the fact that she's had cosmetic procedures. She's been open about it for decades. But Joy pressed harder. You're telling young women to love themselves while constantly changing your appearance. You can't practice what you preach. The tension was no longer subtle. It was thick, visible, uncomfortable. Joy, Cher replied, measured but firm. You're confusing self-acceptance with self-improvement. I've never told anyone not to make changes if it makes them feel better. I've always said people should make choices for themselves, not for others. Joy wasn't satisfied. But you're a role model. You have responsibilities. When you keep getting surgery, you're setting an impossible standard. Impossible, Cher responded, her voice rising just slightly. I'm 77 years old and I look great because I take care of myself. That includes eating well, staying active, and yes, making choices that I feel good about. I don't owe anyone an explanation. The other hosts exchanged uneasy glances. Sarah attempted to redirect the conversation back to the tour, clearly hoping to diffuse the situation, but Joy refused to let go. I just think it's irresponsible, Joy insisted. Young women see you and think natural aging isn't acceptable. That was the moment something shifted in Cher's eyes. Joy, she asked calmly, when did you decide it was your job to police how other women live their lives? Joy claimed she wasn't policing, that she was asking legitimate questions viewers wanted answered, but Cher didn't back down. No, Cher said, firmly. You're being judgmental, and frankly, a little cruel. I came here to talk about my career, not to be lectured about my body by someone who clearly has their own issues with aging. Joy bristled immediately. My own issues? What's that supposed to mean? Cher looked straight at her, irritation no longer hidden. It means maybe you should examine why you're so bothered by other women's choices before pointing fingers. The audience remained dead silent. This was no longer a discussion. This was a confrontation unfolding live, and Joy Behar looked determined to push it even further. Whoopi tried again to regain control, urging everyone to step back. But Joy was defensive now, escalating instead of retreating. You're deflecting, Joy said. You don't want to answer because you know I'm right. Cher's eyes flashed. The only real question is why you invited me here, just to ambush me with personal judgments. It's not an ambush, Joy snapped. It's journalism. That comment hit the table hard, especially since it felt like a jab at the other hosts. You could see the discomfort spreading across the panel as Cher leaned back, studying Joy with a look that said this was far from over, and this is where things were only just beginning. Cher leaned back in her chair, her expression calm on the surface, but unmistakably sharp underneath. The kind of calm that usually comes right before a storm breaks. She studied Joy for a moment, as if deciding whether this was even worth entertaining, then let out a slow breath. Journalism, she repeated, her voice carrying disbelief more than anger. Because from where I'm sitting, this feels less like journalism and more like someone looking for a fight. Joy stiffened immediately, clearly irritated that the exchange was no longer going her way. I'm asking the hard questions, she shot back. Some of us don't just hand out compliments and call it an interview. The remark landed awkwardly, and you could see Sarah and Sunny glance at each other, both visibly uncomfortable with the direction this was heading. Whoopi's face tightened. She had seen heated moments before, but this one was spiraling fast. Joy, she warned gently, let's keep this respectful. But Joy waved her off again, fully committed now to pushing Cher into a corner. Cher straightened, her voice steady, but edged with steel. I've been interviewed by people who actually know how to ask difficult questions without being disrespectful. What you're doing isn't challenging Joy, it's hostile. The audience shifted, some murmuring quietly, others holding their breath. Joy scoffed. Oh, please. You're just not used to being questioned. People have been kissing your feet for decades and now suddenly you can't handle it. That was the moment the room truly froze. Cher didn't raise her voice. She didn't shout. Instead, she locked eyes with Joy and spoke slowly, deliberately. I've handled criticism my entire life. What I won't tolerate is someone hiding cruelty behind a microphone and calling it courage. Sarah looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. Sunny stared down at the table. Even Whoopi seemed momentarily stunned by the shift in Cher's tone, which had gone from defensive to commanding in seconds. Joy tried to regain control. "You keep avoiding the point," she insisted. "You present this image of perfection, and it puts pressure on women everywhere." Cher let out a short laugh, humorless and sharp. "Perfection? I've never claimed to be perfect. I've claimed to be honest. There's a difference, and it's one you keep ignoring." She leaned forward slightly. "You don't get to decide what empowers other women." Joy shook her head, growing visibly frustrated. "That's easy for you to say. You're famous. You're wealthy. You don't live in the real world." The words came out harsher than Joy probably intended, but it was too late to pull them back now. Cher's eyes narrowed. "The real world," she repeated. "You think surviving 5 decades in an industry that discards women the moment they age isn't the real world. You think fighting to stay relevant, respected, and visible isn't real." The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. Joy tried to interrupt, but Cher continued, her voice gaining momentum. "I didn't get here by accident. I didn't stay here by playing it safe. And I certainly didn't stay here by apologizing for my choices." She paused, letting the words sink in. Joy crossed her arms defensively. "I just think you're missing how this looks to people watching at home." "And I think you're projecting," Cher replied instantly, "because you keep framing this as concern, but what it sounds like is resentment." The studio reacted with an audible gasp. Joy's face flushed. "Resentment? That's ridiculous." "Is it?" Cher asked calmly. "Then answer me this. When was the last time you asked a male guest about his hair plugs, his cosmetic treatments, or whether he was setting a bad example?" Joy opened her mouth, then closed it again. Cher didn't wait. "You don't. You never do. Because this scrutiny is reserved for women." Her voice didn't waver, but the accusation landed hard. Joy tried to recover. "That's not fair." "Neither is what you're doing right now," Cher replied. "You're holding me to a standard you don't apply to men, and you're calling it concern." The tension in the room felt unbearable now, like a wire stretched too tight. Whoopi finally jumped in again. Okay, let's slow this down." But Joy was already too deep, her pride clearly on the line. "You know what?" Joy snapped. "Maybe you just can't handle someone who isn't intimidated by your celebrity." That single sentence sucked all the air out of the studio. Even the camera operators hesitated. Sarah audibly gasped. Sunny's eyes went wide, and Cher, who had faced down critics, scandals, and industry gatekeepers her entire career, went very still. "Intimidated?" Cher repeated quietly. Her voice dropped, and somehow that made it more powerful. "Joy, I've been questioned by real journalists, real critics, and real skeptics. None of them needed to insult me to make their point." Joy tried to speak, but Cher raised a hand, stopping her cold. "I'm not finished." And for the first time, Joy actually leaned back. "You want to know what intimidation looks like?" Cher continued. "It looks like tearing someone down instead of listening. It looks like attacking personal choices because you don't like what they represent." Her words cut through the studio like glass. Joy looked around the table, searching for support, but no one met her eyes. The energy had completely shifted. This wasn't a debate anymore. This was exposure. "And what's sad," Cher added, her voice steady but heavy, "is that you had an opportunity to have a meaningful conversation today. You could have asked about survival, reinvention, resilience. Instead, you chose judgment." The silence was deafening. Joy swallowed hard. "I think you're being dramatic." Cher laughed again, sharp and brief. "Dramatic? You spent this entire segment questioning my integrity, my influence, and my worth. And you think pointing that out is dramatic?" She shook her head slowly. The production crew could be seen moving nervously behind the cameras now. This was clearly not going according to plan, but no one dared cut away. Cher shifted in her seat, her posture changing, her patience thinning. I came here in good faith. I came here to talk about my work. Instead, I was ambushed. She looked directly at Joy. And I won't pretend otherwise. Joy tried one last pivot. I'm just having a conversation. No, Cher replied instantly. You're having an agenda. The words landed like a verdict. The room felt like it was teetering on the edge of something bigger now, something irreversible, and everyone could sense it. Whatever happened next was going to define this moment forever, and that's exactly where things were heading next. Joy inhaled sharply, clearly rattled, but instead of backing down, she made the mistake that would seal the moment forever. You keep saying agenda, Joy said, her voice tight. But maybe the truth is you just don't like being challenged by someone who isn't impressed by your fame. That line landed like a spark in a room full of gas. Cher went completely still. The studio seemed to shrink around her. When she spoke again, her voice was low, controlled, and unmistakably final. Joy, let me be very clear. I don't expect admiration, praise, or special treatment. What I expect is basic respect. And you crossed that line a long time ago. Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Cher didn't let her. You keep framing this as bravery, she continued, her words deliberate. But bravery isn't attacking a guest's personal life. Bravery is listening. Bravery is asking hard questions without cruelty. What you're doing right now isn't brave, it's lazy. The audience reacted audibly, a wave of gasps and murmurs rippling through the studio. Joy's face flushed deeper. Lazy? I've been doing this job for decades. Then act like it, Cher replied instantly. The words cut clean and sharp. Because decades of experience should teach you empathy, not entitlement. Whoopi shifted forward, clearly sensing the moment slipping completely out of control. Okay, let's pause for a second, she said, trying to ground the room. But Cher had reached a point of no return. No, Whoopi, Cher said calmly, raising a hand. This matters. She turned back to Joy. You keep talking about responsibility to viewers. Let's talk about your responsibility as a host. You invite someone onto your show. You don't weaponize their honesty against them. Joy scoffed weakly. I didn't weaponize anything. Didn't you? Cher asked. You called me hypocritical. You questioned my integrity. You implied I was harmful to women. All on live television. And now you're surprised I won't smile through it. Joy tried to laugh it off, but it sounded hollow. This is television. It's not that serious. Cher shook her head slowly. That right there is the problem, she said. You treat people's lives like content, their bodies like debate topics, their dignity like collateral damage. The studio audience was silent again. Fully locked in, Cher continued, her voice gaining quiet force. You want to talk about beauty standards? Then talk about why women are expected to age quietly while men are praised for every wrinkle. Talk about why confidence in older women is treated like arrogance. Talk about why honesty is punished when it doesn't fit a narrative. Joy swallowed hard. You're twisting this. No, Cher replied firmly. I'm naming it. Joy's posture sagged slightly, the bravado draining out of her as she realized she was losing control of the exchange. I think you're taking this personally, she said, grasping for ground. How could I not? Cher shot back. You made it personal. She leaned forward. And here's the truth you don't seem ready to hear. Women don't need you to protect them from seeing someone live freely. They need permission to do the same. That line hit hard. Joy shook her head. You're not listening to me. I listened, Cher said. I listened while you judged. I listened while you interrupted. I listened while you hid behind the word journalism to justify disrespect. The tension was now unbearable. Even the production crew looked frozen, unsure whether to cut away or let history unfold. Cher stood up slowly, her chair scraping softly against the floor, the sound echoing through the stunned studio. Everyone froze. What are you doing? Joy asked, her voice suddenly uncertain. I am reclaiming my time, Cher replied calmly, and my dignity. Joy stood as well, panic creeping into her expression. You're walking out? Over a conversation. Over an ambush, Cher corrected. Over disrespect. She turned briefly toward Whoopi. I appreciate you and the others. Truly. But I won't sit here and be treated like a prop in someone else's performance. Whoopi nodded, visibly shaken. I'm sorry this happened, she said quietly. Cher picked up her purse. You don't need to apologize, she replied, but someone else does. She looked directly at Joy. Joy hesitated, then muttered, I'm sorry if you felt attacked. Cher stopped mid-step and turned back slowly. That's not an apology, she said evenly. That's a deflection. The audience reacted instantly. She took another step toward the edge of the set. You don't get to rewrite what just happened, Cher continued. You asked what you thought were hard questions. What you actually revealed was how comfortable you are tearing down women who don't fit neatly into your expectations. Joy looked stunned. That's not who I am. Then prove it, Cher replied, because today that's exactly who you showed us. She paused at the exit, the cameras still rolling, the moment stretching into something unforgettable. Joy made one last attempt, her voice cracking slightly. Don't leave like this. Cher turned back one final time, her expression calm, resolved, unshaken. Like what? She asked, with my voice intact? With my boundaries clear? With my self-respect untouched? She nodded once. Yes, I'll leave like this. And with that, Cher walked off the set, heels steady, head high, leaving behind a stunned audience, a silent panel, and a host forced to sit with the consequences of her own words. The cameras lingered longer than usual. Whoopi struggled to regain composure. Sarah and Sunny stared ahead, speechless, and Joy Behar sat frozen, the realization sinking in that she hadn't just lost control of an interview, she had exposed something far more damaging. Some viewers would later call it a powerful stand. Others would call it uncomfortable, even necessary. But one thing became impossible to deny. That wasn't just a walk-off. It was a line drawn in real time, live on television, where power shifted, masks slipped, and a question lingered long after the cameras cut. When someone challenges an icon and loses the moral ground in the process, who really walks away exposed?